Welcome back. I'm Dr. Mitch Kennedy, owner of Design with Nature. This is part 2 of 3 in the Corporate Sustainability Program series, The Naked Truth About the Emperor's New Clothes. What is not in 70% of all sustainability programs. The usual program gaps. Design with Nature reviews many sustainability programs and also benchmarks them against peers. Typically, we find 3 major gaps. The first gap being risk ignorance and liability. First gap, risk ignorance. In the last 4 years, fewer than 30% of the companies that report publicly on sustainability progress have included risk analysis. Keep in mind, during that same time, these companies have more than doubled the scope of data disclosed and also increased the use of impartial verifying bodies by 50%. Yet, they are still not looking at risk. And I would think that any third-party verifier worth their salt would push hard for risk disclosure due to the potential backdraft of liability if they did not. Risk number 1, supplier outages. The first risk to your business is the loss of a supplier due to a climatic weather event. Toyota required 3 to 6 months to bring its suppliers back after the Fukushima earthquake. In the U.S., petroleum refining in the Gulf of Mexico slowed to a trickle following Hurricane Katrina. This hurricane immediately caused 600,000 people to be unemployed. Oil prices spiked to all-time highs on fear of shortages, and gasoline prices in the Southeast increased by 50 to 100%. The U.S. had 11 major storms in 2012, each causing $1 billion or more in damages. In the fall of 2012, we also had our first superstorm due to the combining of weather patterns. This hurricane resulted in $45 billion in damages, not including economic loss, across New Jersey, New York, and Connecticut. While there is no firm statistic yet, a good percentage of the smaller businesses affected will close permanently. What if one of them was your supplier? Risk number 2, supply route outages. If your company is in Colorado, the news of a coastal hurricane has little direct effect upon you, except if the supply route for your material is cut off. In this case, your supplier may be able to produce, but not get their products to you. What then? The Louisiana and Mississippi ports receive 8,000 to 9,000 ships per year in foreign cargo. If these ports are down for just 1 month, that would delay 700 to 800 vessels from delivering their products. This would then cause a backlog of inspections for U.S. Customs, furthering the delay. Long-term risks from sea level rise will only compound vulnerability, causing more flooding and permanently submerging some structures in low-lying areas. Risk number 3, energy outages. Even if your supplier's buildings and supply routes are undamaged, you could still lose electricity or fuel oil delivery. In the 2011 Halloween nor'easter that hit New England and New York, businesses and residents were without power for up to 14 days. You can see by the chart that the biggest increase in power outages has been due to hurricanes and windstorms. How well are you protected from power outages? So here's the naked truth about the Emperor's New Clothes. Ethical Investment Research Services Limited revealed that 70% of the world's leading brands lack policies and structure to change their risk profile regarding climate change. IRIS goes on to warn investors that this will increasingly place the brand at a risk of loss and subsequent poor stock performance. In the 2 years since this study was released, the percentage has not decreased. Second gap, commodity vulnerabilities. On top of the risks to supply chain continuity, commodity price fluctuations are the second most common class of risk to manufacturers. As mentioned before, hurricanes and winter storms increase both the speculative futures price of commodities, such as the price of oil and natural gas, and the at-the-pump price for things like gasoline and home heating oil. These events and other severe weather can also affect agricultural yields and their market prices. As you can see by the chart, the average monthly price for crude oil, $15 to $25 a barrel, was pretty stable throughout 1989 into 2002. Then speculation and a number of supply constraints drove the price to record highs of over $130 a barrel. The global recession in 2008 cratered this price, but notice that after that, the price remained at more than double the pre-recession average. Currently, the price has more than doubled again from $45 to $121 a barrel. How did this affect your business? Is it still affecting you? Let's talk about what happened last time. I'll tell you who was affected by this: plastics manufacturers. In the U.S., natural gas is the primary feedstock for plastic resin, but plastics manufacturers' price was closely tied to crude oil at the time. Also, any extra capacity in petroleum refining is used to create the most profitable distillate, which was gasoline at the time. And this was instead of propane, which is a feedstock for plastics. As a result, resin prices rose dramatically. Then transport costs rose too. All of this put the squeeze on plastics companies globally. Luckily, the demand for oil dropped due to the recession. In another example, we can look at tea leaf production. India is the world's #2 tea producer. In 2012, the country produced 991,000 tons of tea leaves. That's roughly 22% of the world's supply. However, since 2007, there has been an 18% decrease in production, and that's almost 100,000 tons. Increasing temperatures in these sensitive regions have changed rainfall patterns, increased pest outbreaks, and shortened the dormancy periods of fungi. This has caused harvest to decrease by 18% from 2007 to 2010. Many U.S. tea companies buy leaves from this region. So in closing this part of the talk, we have 5 questions relating to sustainability and risk. Who are your stakeholders and collaborators? Are your suppliers addressing their climate risk? Do you operate in, or source from, or travel through areas that are considered climate hotspots? How can you create redundancy in your own energy supply? And where are the information gaps? We feel these are critical questions to reduce your risk exposure and to ensure the security of your supply chain. Is there someone within your organization that can do this analysis for you? If there is, that's great, and get to it. But if your team needs a little help getting started, some training, or if you need someone to manage the project or do the whole thing, please give me a call. The third program gap will be explained in Part 3, The Opportunity for a New Suit. Thanks for watching.